Welcome to RGBA, colorful tech news and reviews. This is episode 96. My name is Alexandre Valliere-Lagacé, and I'm joined by my co-host, Tara Ménard. All right, let's jump in right in the good news of this week. We finally have a little update. Can you walk us through this update, Tyler?
So, the new MacBook Pros?
No, the new Apple Watch?
Okay, I was confused. I thought I was missing something here.
I'm just teasing you.
Yeah. So, a couple of days ago, they announced an update out of the blue for new updated MacBook Pros. It's exclusively for Touch Bar MacBook Pros. It's the spec bump, a normal spec bump if you want. New i9s, I think. I don't even follow the new Intels, whatever the new Intel chips are.
Core i7 and Core i9s, the new generation.
Right. The cool things to note are 32 gigs of RAM are available on the 15. Also, on the 13 is only capped to 16 like it used to before. And also the biggest news, I think, or the biggest news that we can't confirm right now is a third generation keyboard. So it's still the same keyboard as the old MacBook Pros, but it's supposed to be quieter. It doesn't say it's more reliable. They don't say it's fixed. They only say it's quieter. So I guess we just have to wait and see what this keyboard looks like.
More in a few seconds about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so every base model, if you want, is not updated. So the 13-inch without the touch bar, like you said, didn't change. So it's the same as last year. The base model, if you think about the 15-inch, was the 2015 MacBook Pro that was still being sold. This one is discontinued, so you cannot purchase it anymore. So your very, very first MacBook Pro 15-inch is with touch bar. There's no 15-inch without touch bar anymore. And so that means that like Apple tries to push up everyone to the more pro models. So 32 gigs, like you said, the new SSD can go up to 4 terabytes for a sweet $2,000 extra. So that's pretty fun. The i9s are optional. So by default, if you get the 15-inch, you get an i7, which is a 6-core versus 4-core last year. The 13-inch gained 2 cores. So instead of being 2-core, it's now a 4-core. So everything kind of trickled down the product line if you want. Most of it, everything. So the chassis is exactly the same. The screen has True Tone. So that's going to be interesting to see or not see, but just know it's better. Because when I tried to look at True Tone on iPad Pro, I don't see it. But when I compare it to a non-True Tone display, that's where it pops up in your eyes. So
if you flip it on and off, you don't notice the difference?
Yes, but not when you use the device itself. Like if I take my iPad, I'm in a room that's kind of bluish. I see the screen is nice. I go in a room that's more orangish, and the screen is nice, but I don't see any difference.
Okay, I see it flipping.
Oh yeah, okay.
On my phone, especially, like in the train.
I never actually walked around with an iPad from room to room to see if the color changes, but every time I open the iPad, I look at it, it's adapted to the environment, and that's the point of it. You're just not supposed to see it. So, but yeah, the same thing goes with the MacBook Pro now. So 13-inch and 15-inch. So that's going to be very nice for people. And now the fun stuff. Our good friends at iFixit, they kind of uncovered what exactly happened with the keyboard. So, Apple didn't mention that it fixed the problem. So they didn't acknowledge any problem. They still say that it's only a very small percentage of people. And now this new keyboard, people have been trying it and it's quieter. So what must have happened to this little keyboard? Well, in the show notes, you'll find a link to an article from iFixit by Sam Leinhart, where he actually uncovered the exact cover-up, if you want. And it's a real cover-up, meaning that they put a little piece of plastic around the butterfly switches to protect against dust. So the key switch itself has not changed. It's just that there's a little thin layer of plastic on top to prevent debris from going into the wrong places. And they tested that. They tested that last year with the model. They put a single speck of sand right under the butterfly switch, and the key wasn't working anymore and couldn't trigger, because the way butterfly switches work is both sides of the butterfly wings, if you want, need to move at the same speed and have the same clearance to work. If one side doesn't bend, if you want, or move, the other one doesn't either. So it's like if you're hitting something hard. And this little piece of plastic is supposed to fix the problem and prevent dust from going where it shouldn't. There's a little video in their article at the end, and they actually tried it. They put they throw like a handful of dust on the key, and then they just blow air around it to remove all the dust, and everything goes out, and the key still works. So, and then now they point to an old patent they have for that. I don't know from what year, but that patent basically explains that for any type of switches, they can have a plastic membrane that's going to protect. I think we discussed that on the podcast a couple months ago. It was from March 2018, so sometime in spring we might have discussed this. So that's the magic behind the new keyboard. So we'll have to see in real life if this really helps. But I'm thinking that they did it for a good reason, and it's probably going to work. So that's a quick way to release new MacBook Pros on a yearly cycle, because now this year marks the second year in a row where we have an update. So that's great. This means that this is now legit, and Apple is showing us by their actions that they are actually serious about updating the hardware every year, plus or minus 1 month, if you want to be precise. But it still is great. So people can now be reassured that it might happen like that for a couple of more years. So you know that if you're coming up to, let's say, summertime, and your MacBook Pro is, I don't know, has problems or whatever, you know you can maybe wait a couple months more, and chances are good that you're going to have a new device.
Do you think this was meant for WWDC, but it was late?
I think yes. I think the keyboard was not ready. I'm pretty sure that is. Because for once, weird, the CPUs were ready for a couple of months. I've seen Core i9s pop up in YouTube videos maybe like in March or May. So there's no reason why Apple couldn't be on the bandwagon before everyone else and directly purchase those from Intel. So I'm thinking that they probably wanted to fix the butterfly switches properly. And when they announced the program, everyone who goes for repair might get these new plastic-covered butterfly switch.
You think?
Yeah. Well, it wouldn't make sense to replace a broken part with another broken part.
Right.
Unless you really drink the Kool-Aid and think that when Apple says that it's a very tiny percentage and almost no one had issues, so these were just bad luck purchasers. No. From what we uncovered in the rumors, probably more like double the single-digit percentage. So it is a real problem for me.
I'd like to hear from people like, who's that? I think IBM is ordering like 100,000 Macs or something, or switching like the whole user base to MacBook. So I'd like to hear from big companies like that. Like, we have been using Macs since like 2014, and since 2016, here's the failure rate of the keyboards or whatever, like real stats, not just this one people online that gets blown up because he works for The Verge or he's linked on Daring Fireball or something like that, because we don't see like the real impact and how it works.
Yeah, I agree. That would be interesting. Kind of like our friends at Backblaze do with their hard drive failure rates.
Right, exactly. I want the same report. The same thing. Every
quarter they have all of their hard drives per brand, per model, and even sometimes per version, because the same model gets a revision sometimes. And you know exactly how many of those had failures. And they have percentage of use and numbers of runtime hours. So everything is calculated. So when you look at this, you can see that a specific Hitachi drive is super expensive, but it's also like 0.1% of failure rates. Whereas another Seagate that is cheaper, that is marked as enterprise compliant, actually has like a 20% failure rate. So you can, and I think that the reason why they do this is that they also provide more information to the manufacturers, and they probably get paid for that too. So it's a way of give some, receive some. So they get paid for that information, and manufacturer can use that to maybe isolate certain problems. And especially if they send back the drive, then they can really help the manufacturer to make better products.
I hope they don't send them back though, because it's full of personal information of whoever.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know what they do with that. They're still magnetic, so maybe there's a way to, I don't know, like
It must
spray
be in their terms of service or privacy policy. It must be have like an exception. If your information was found on a broken drive, we send it back to Seagate or whatever.
Yeah, or it's encrypted and there's just no way to get the data back.
Right.
That's also a possibility with the hardware encryption nowadays. It's as fast as not encrypted.
So now the only laptop without USB-C and without Retina is the old poor MacBook Air.
Yeah. Well, last week we discussed a couple of rumors, like the bucket of rumors, where Apple had to release to Eurasia a list of SKUs for new products, and there were MacBook Pros, there were MacBooks, there were iPads. So this is maybe just the first little drop out of the bucket of new products from Apple this year. So we might see late 2018 MacBook Air / MacBook replacement / new device / whatever. And iPads, the rumored 11-inch iPad, that could be one also. There's a new also Apple Watch in the rumors we'll cover later. So everything is kind of like in flux at this point. And like there's no smoke where there's no fire. And at this point, we have so many different sources pointing to new devices here and there that I'm thinking that Apple might have put their hardware cap on and start to release lots of hardware this year. So we're going to see a lot for the next 6 months, I believe.
It's just too bad because the back to school starts like now. And back to school, you want like a cheap laptop, and you don't want to have people buying MacBook Airs again. I don't think so.
No, actually, I walk by the hospital every day, and I just realized that I wanted to get a couple statistics because it's all window walls, so you can see inside the little offices. And I wanted to see how many people have computers there that are not like Dell or HPs, because I figured that by default they all have HPs and Dells, and I was surprised. Half and half. Half of them have Mac computers, and half have like black plastic Dell / HP devices. But the thing is that everyone except a lady have MacBook Airs, 11 or 13 inch. So it's very, 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 very small and dated. And the only one that was nice is probably the 13 inch. And maybe that lady does some graphic stuff. That's why she was able to get a better computer. But yeah, the MacBook Air is dated. You don't want your kids to buy that. You don't want them to cut up their eyes with the non-retina display. So we are really, really hoping for something better. And unless it comes out like maybe mid-August, but that's like vacation time for everyone. So
No, it's too late.
yeah, it was now or never.
Not just for like consumers, but for schools. The orders are already in for a bunch of laptops if they need them. Like that's been done like in June, July already.
Yeah, no, but it's also too late for the MacBook Pros that were just released, I'm pretty sure. But I'm thinking more about the parents who have to buy like their kid a computer for high school or whatever. You don't need to buy them like in July. You can buy them like end of August, just before.
Right, because you want to wait for the back to school from Apple too. That comes with a pair of headphones or whatever they give.
Yeah, it's already there though.
It started?
Yeah, in that same press release that they announced the new MacBook Pros, they said you should get like a pair of Bose Studio whatever thingy
Beats
with your MacBook Pro.
It's Beats, not Bose.
Did I say Bose? Yeah, Beats. Yeah,
same difference.
Yeah, it starts with a B. It's the same thing. All right, so the Apple Store, who turned 10 last week, is now turning 10 again.
Yeah,
what is that?
It's just because we talked about it last week, but there was a bunch of news, and this is a super nice story from 9to5Mac. From Michael Stieber. I don't know how to say his name, but he goes through like a bunch of apps, and he has a bunch of screenshots from 2008 when it came out to like now, and it's really cool to see the progress of the app icons and like the interface of all the applications. And it's all like apps that you've used pretty much. It's like Facebook, Evernote, Instagram, OmniFocus. It's all a bunch of cool screenshots.
Yeah, they're a pretty nice thing to look at.
And also, you included the first app I ever downloaded, eBay.
Yeah, looking at it right now, it's pretty crazy.
We saw a bunch of posts on Twitter too this week of people posting their first first page of downloaded apps from 10 years ago. And it's funny to see that a lot of people still have like the apps that they use. It's still like relevant apps like Facebook, Twitterific. There was a lot of net newswire, but I think that's just part of our little internet bubble. They read RSS.
Yeah. Instapaper looks nice. Yeah, it's a fun little throwback to look at exactly how everything evolved. Even PCalc, only 3 icons, but still good evolution. And yeah, there's lots of old stuff in there. If you've been there since the beginning, it's fun to look at. But I also know that Federico Vitici is going to post something, I think it's Tuesday. So something he's been working on for a long time. He didn't tell much yet. Didn't want to spoil it, but he's looking at something to publish something very interesting this week. Probably like something about the App Store, and maybe like this guy did, but like 10 times longer and 50,000 words. Because if you look at all the recent news on Mac Stories, they were not posted by him. So
yeah, and Mac Stories / App Stories, they're like podcasts. They've been doing interviews for this 10-year anniversary. So they have a couple of good ones. If you want to listen, we can put them in the show notes.
Yeah, good idea. There was one with Mark Arment and David Smith, which was interesting. I also listened to the one with the guys from OmniFocus. And who was that other person? Yeah, it was the guy from PCalc. So yeah, interesting. There was another one which developers I did not know, so I skipped this one. But the format is very interesting. It kind of reminds me of the WWDC John Voorhees interviews that he did with developers, although now it's a lot less noisy and a lot better quality. So it's pretty cool.
He's not in the cafe or whatever you were, wherever
yeah,
he was.
exactly. Yeah, so it was super noisy, and even with modern tools, it's hard to remove all the noise and focus on the voice. All right, so there was a new a rumor. Well, we had in the news, but
it's half.
Yeah, I think it's a done deal for me. Like, I don't think it's something that will not happen. For me, it's confirmed 100%. Is that Apple is deploying 1Password to all 123,000 employees. So they started small with maybe 100 people, and then they're gonna roll out this to over the next month. If you look at the numbers, like that's about $2.5 million a year they're gonna pay if they got a 50% discount, and that's like about, I think it was like 20% of Agile Bytes business, like in one single contract. So that I'm pretty sure champagne pop off at Agile Bytes offices in Ottawa. So it's gonna be pretty good for them. But at the same time, there's also rumors that 1Password is being acquired by Apple. And of course, as companies are, 1Password confirmed via Twitter that rumors of my acquisition are completely false. My humans and I are happily independent and plan to remain so. So that's exactly what you have to do when you're in acquisition talk, is you just basically say, nope, not happening. But like a few days / weeks / months later, look what happened. All of a sudden, we're acquired.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool because they're a Canadian company. I think they're based out of Toronto. They hire a lot of people from Montreal also, because if you go to the iOS meetups, there's a lot of people that work for well, not a lot, but a couple of people that work for 1Password that are here in Montreal. So that's a pretty cool, like, close to home.
I didn't know they had people in Montreal too that worked for Agile Byte.
Yeah, they have remote people.
Okay, cool.
Another cool thing is just, well, not cool, sorry. Another weird thing is that Apple has this default, keychain thing?
Yep.
So what's going to happen to that? Or they Sherlock themselves or something?
Kind of, yeah. Kind of. So, yeah. I hope this is going to die.
If they buy it, or is it going to ship by default, or is it going to be like an extra thing we're going to have to pay? Like, I want 1Password to stay separate. I just paid $70 for the Mac app again, so I don't want to pay per month. I'm on the pay once there train if you want. Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's gonna happen, but the way I see this, 1Password will be rebranded Passwords, and it will hopefully stay as a separate app, because that's one thing people are always complaining about Keychain on iOS, especially, is you have absolutely no visibility on your passwords, and you cannot manage them. You cannot update them easily. It's so integrated that it needs to be fully transparent. But with transparency, sometimes come obscurity. So you need to actually get your hands on the software and kickstart the sync, or do a refresh of some kind, or whatever, or add like a new vault for work, or all these things need to happen somehow. And with Apple solution right now, it never happens. So for me, 1Password is the right solution. We use it at work. I use it personally, and everything is in 1Password for me, just because it's reliable, it's secure, and it can do anything I need. And if there's a problem, I just go in, look at the sync, kickstart a sync. It's going to resync. I had the problem recently with my iPad. For some reason, it didn't want to sync. Well, it didn't sync the last 200 passwords or something. So I just got on the iPad, looked at the number of items, see that there was a mismatch. So I got to my Dropbox, confirmed that it was still working, go to my 1Password, sync, everything's fine. So that's it. I had no troubles, no need to sign out of iCloud and sign back in, or restart devices, or God know what black magic you need to do nowadays to get your things to resync, but none of that. So it would make sense for Apple.
I forget if Angelo from Double NC talked about it on the podcast, but I'm pretty sure. But I know he talked about it to me a lot, but he had a huge problem with Apple Keychain, and he basically had to sign out of iCloud and do all the sign out thing, and he had problems with it.
Sacrifice a goat, and
yeah, and he had problems with his iMac because it had to re-download his whole Apple Photos library and all that. So stay away.
Because that's a side effect. Like if everything's in the same bucket and you want to empty the bucket, well, you need to fill it back in again, and that takes some time. So if your photos are on iCloud and you have a keychain problem, they don't seem related, but it's the same only action you can do, which is sign out, sign back in, and then it trashes all your photo and it re-downloads them. So it's way too cumbersome for nothing. All right, moving on to a little news about a new external GPU. So Blackmagic, the software company, I don't know if they do make hardware, but it's very, very, very prominent in the professional video space. I've now released a all-in-one GPU, eGPU, sorry. So for $700, you can only buy it from Apple, which is interesting. It features four USB 3 ports, 2 Thunderbolts 3 ports, 1 HDMI, and so you can plug like up to 3 displays, like the 5K LG. You can plug 3 displays on there, so that's amazing. 3 5K displays. It's pretty interesting. It allows you to do VR development much easier. And I think they say that it's about 2.8x faster on the 15-inch and 8 times faster on the 13-inch. So this is kind of the dream scenarios for people who needs to work on the go, but also who needs to have something light. So if you're out and about and you don't need your full rig with you, then that 13-inch MacBook Pro will do just fine. And then once you get to the office, you put your computer on your desk, you plug this little cable, and boom, your graphic processing is now 8 times faster. It's not 2 times faster, not 1.x times faster, 8x faster. So that is very impressive.
Yeah, and also the only thing I can see in this article is a screenshot with the horrible LG display there next to the iMac. So it can't come soon enough.
Yeah, this is like an eyesore because you have a nice desk, nice plants, a nice row of random books. But the only thing that's an eyesore is that big black display in the middle that is not aluminum like the iMac that's in front of her, and not aluminum like the Blackmagic eGPU. And I think that's even is it a Hasselblad camera?
I think so, yes. And how does she work with her screens off center like that? Like they're not aligned properly.
Yeah, I'm this close to believe that there was no screens on that table, and it's only a render.
Yeah, I just think it's the 2 people that were pasted into like this environment, and it's all computer. It's all like made on computer.
Last time you sent me like an article about how they do stock photos for airplanes.
Oh yeah.
And you had people. Oh, it was crazy. Let me just explain one of them. Like imagine you want to take a picture of someone in the first class cabin. So those are little pods kind of where you can actually slide down your band, your seat, and it becomes a bed and everything. You have consoles, you have your own little personal TV and everything. But the way they took the picture, which is basically people sitting on a stool with two pieces of cardboards on each side, and that's the picture they took. And then on the computer, they do all of the modeling to fit the exact cabin design on the people. So they don't need to go in planes with like rigs of lights and everything to take pictures, because most probably they don't have enough like distance to pull back and get the wide shots. So that's why they have to do this in the computers. But it's amazing how with such few the things, like a piece of cardboard, piece of cloth, and a little circle drawn on a on a cardboard thing, that's like your whole habitat, and everything is added by computer afterward. So if you can find the link again and put it in the show notes, it'll be fun to share with the listeners. But this is very, very, very funny.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it right now.
I'm pretty sure that's the same thing for those stock photos. Like this guy and this girls were sitting at a desk, which was basically like a white desk, and there was nothing in front of them. And then, all of a sudden, there's like a composited image being added with plants and books and shelves and whatever.
And also, I didn't know this was a thing, like eGPUs. I remember they were talking about it, but I didn't know there was actually like people that use it. So
yeah, well,
for VR maybe and AR.
It's worse than that. Like there was one that released not too long ago, which had a NVIDIA 1080 Ti GPU in it, which is the exact same card that crypto miners use. So right now it's hard to get those cards because they were all purchased at higher price than their supposedly street value. But the thing is that in those eGPU, it's worth it to just buy the eGPU for the card because it's cheaper than the list price of the cards on the markets right now. So there were people who actually bought those eGPUs just for the card. And then they put the card in their PC and try to sell the enclosure on eBay or whatever. So that's one thing that happened. But I think that Blackmagic is the second company who released one. I remember Macworld doing a video on it and showing how it behaves with like external displays and everything, and it was pretty cool. So yeah, it's been talked for a long time. I think they even talked about this during the Thunderbolt 2 days, and I think we never saw anything from it. But now we finally have legit device that are available at a respectable price. It's not like cheap for $700, but for a professional, if you're able to have like your little MacBook Pro and get 3 times more performance out of this, or 8 times if it's a small 13-inch, it's like day and night. Like you can, especially if you do like a graphics design or VR, AR, or anything that's intensive on the CPU, even machine learning, I guess, this would probably help you tremendously. So moving on to a bit of news about Siri and machine learning, since we just discussed this. Remember a couple months ago, Apple hired a guy named Gian Andrea from, I think it was Google, is it? Or Amazon?
I think it's Google.
Anyways, yeah, Google. Yeah, 8 years at Google. So now they are actually merging the teams. So AI and machine learning is now moving in with the Siri team under one single leader. So hopefully this will mean that Siri will get smarter, faster, and better. So that's a good news, I think, for everyone.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. There's not much else to discuss. It's a good idea. It makes sense because Siri, I think, reached like a summit of what they can do like programmatically. And once you're there, what do? You build a model and then you train Siri on discussions. You can, those call centers when they say that your call will be recorded. This is for 2 purposes. One is for insurance / they can go back to it and tell you that you lied to them or whatever. Rarely the opposite, sadly. But it's also something that they can sell off to other companies to do transcription services to train their model, or now probably with voice services. So most probably they already have a service or the text that is linked to the audio file, and they can send that over to Siri, for example, or other customers, and they can train their models using that data. So that's one thing that we might not think of today, but it's something that has evolved from all the machine learning groups, kind of like what Google does with the CAPTCHA. Like they ask you like point at cars or point at I don't know, like street signs or whatever.
Yeah, work for us, please.
Yeah, exactly. They want us to work for them to help their AI. Okay, this is where you have to look at for faces or license plate, and this is where you have to look at for street names or whatever. So you can confirm that you're actually on the right street, and the next street is the one that's on the map. So and they all match. So that's what we do. That's why we do this. Same thing that we had a couple of years ago where we had words written that seemed to be like scanned pages from books. Well, it was exactly that. It was the big Google book project where they wanted to scan every book in the universe. And well, some scans did not report like proper sentences, and they fed the people those sentences, and you had to write the words for them. So
And also street addresses and all that.
yeah. So moving on to the Rumours Corner. We still have our friend Minchi Kuo. He's pretty prolific nowadays. Last week we had a bucket of rumors, and now we have a bucket of rumors that is a little bit shallower, but still interesting. This time he says that this fall, so for this season, we're going to have new iPhones like he said last week, 5.8 inch, 6.5 inch, and 6.1 LCD, all iPhones Pro probably. The more I think about it, the more I think that the 6.1 LCD will probably be like an iPhone 9 and not an iPhone 10 that is cheaper. So I don't know. We'll have to see. So the iPad Pro with the new 11-inch version, that's probably a given. For September, it's interesting. I would have thought more like for next March, but anyways, why not? But where that gets very interesting is now the MacBook Pro, and iMac. We just got the MacBook Pro, so that's probably out of the bag for now. But MacBook and iMac with significant performance upgrades, and finally the Mac Mini. So I'm thinking Core i7, Core i9 new generation. We just got on the 15-inch. Will be trickled down into the iMac and hopefully the MacBook. I don't know if there's a low voltage version of that CPU that can run on this little device, but still, I think it should also be refreshed with a new case to have at least 4 ports. Well, let's say 2 ports at the minimum, because one is really very not enough. I don't think you can count the charging port as a USB 3 port, because most of the times you'll be plugged in, because this battery is not the biggest, especially if you crank out the performance out of it, if you try to do Xcode compiles, for example, and stuff like that. So it's going to be quite important to get that update. The Mac Mini, I don't know what to think about it. I'm thinking maybe a new design, maybe something easier to replace, repair, but then again, maybe it's something more all welded together, so Apple doesn't have to do any maintenance on that, and you buy what you buy and that's it. So I don't know. The next one is the MacBook Air, which will be, well, they say it's a new low price notebook. That kind of going to be replacing the MacBook Air. So is it a MacBook with, it doesn't make sense. That's where I have a problem. And probably that's where Apple has a problem. We have the MacBook Air, which is so outdated, which is so like almost last decade technology kind of. And we have the MacBook, which is kind of like the new guy on the block that is all the new feature, but still not too expensive-ish and small. So like they need to merge those two lines, but get us like an 11 and, well, maybe a 12 and a 14-inch. I don't know, like two sizes, and just drop the price, because that thing is way too expensive for a entry level. And the $99 MacBook Air in the States is what sells, and still sells today, which is sad because people don't know what they're buying. And if we can just get like maybe a Core i5 of the latest generation that is super optimized for low power, that would be amazing. And finally, the Apple Watch will supposedly get an update. For that, I'll forward you to the show notes. We have a link from a Mark Rumour article that shows you exactly the existing 38 millimeters watch size, so the screen versus the bezel, and then the new 38 millimeters will be like a smaller size, bigger size, sorry. So it's not 38 millimeters anymore, but it's kind of equivalent of the small size, and then the 42 with the new 42. So it's about 35% more screen space for the 42 and 38% more screen space. So that's going to be quite interesting.
Those are made by Ryan Jones. He's not a developer, but he manages, or he's like a designer for Weatherline and this upcoming flight tracker app. So he was just playing on Twitter. So I don't know how Mac Stories or Mac Rumors picked this up and said it was a rumor. I think he's just speculating on based on another rumor. So that's where the sizes come from.
Yeah, because I think Minchiku gave us like inches size, like 1.57 inch and 1.78 inch screen. So you probably convert that to millimeters to see how it fits, and did like a mock-up that is pixel perfect in Photoshop and did the equivalent translation. There's also Venya Geskin, who posted like a screenshot of a design of an Apple Watch with a bigger screen to the same article on Mac Rumors. So yeah, it's looking good. Hopefully this will come, and hopefully all the bands will still fit. That's the big question, but I don't think they're gonna replace the band with something else. It makes no sense. Like the people bought a ton of them, and you need to keep them compatible for sure.
Yeah, like the accessories for the original 30-pin Mac iPhone.
Yeah,
like those never change.
Never change.
Are you waiting for this new like Series 4?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Because my watch Series 0 will not get an update, and I'm kind of stuck there. And it's like so slow that I don't use it apart from like a notification thing and just tell me what's my next business meeting, and that's it. Like I don't use it. I use it a couple times to tap to do plus 30 seconds on Overcast while on the now playing screen, but that is it. Everything else I try to do with it is unreliable. So even now, I lost the names and the emails of people like 2 weeks ago, and ever since, like I tried to do the reset to get the names and the calendars to sync again, but that doesn't work. Tried to reboot yesterday, it doesn't work. Now I had an update that I didn't do on my watch. I just did it last night, so we'll see today how it goes. But I have low expectations. Like it's too slow. It doesn't. Apple is known not to be the best when trying to sync an old device and a new device. So I know my iPhone 7 Plus is not like an iPhone 10, but it's newer. So it's good with like the latest and the greatest, but to sync with something that is slow, like my Apple Watch, there's probably timeouts happening all over the place, and that's probably why it doesn't sync up properly. And the last rumor, and just want to cover this one quickly, is the mass production of both Airpower and updated AirPods. So Airpower would come in fall, finally. Yeah, this is a running joke. Apple having pre-announced a product that it never shipped. I think that's the first and last time we'll see that. Apple is not known to pre-announce devices unless it's sure to ship them in days or weeks, or at the very latest 6 months. They did that for the iPhone, and they did I think it was in January for for the Apple Watch. So that's like 4 months, but they never went over 6 months. And now we have something that took like, well, if it ships in the fall, it's gonna have taken like 12 months. So it's not something small. And the updated AirPods, which also I might get, I don't know, still on the fence. It's hot with my big bows. I don't know.
Yeah, we're waiting for the Mac Pro also this year, technically.
Yeah, I forgot about this one.
Yeah, we always forget, but it's supposed to be calendar year 2018. So I'm guessing it's going to come out this fall. Guessing.
Yeah, well, at this point, it can be any time. Like last time Apple discussed the Mac Pro, they said they didn't confirm it was a 2018 product, and people are thinking that it has more chance to be a 2019 product. So
I don't understand like this whole thing. Like, how can it take that much time? Like, just throw money at the problem? No, I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure there's vision conflicts. Like some people at Apple would like a cheese grater, and some people would like the trash can. So
well, put a stick in the ground and tell them we want the cheese grater, and just do one. Like, can't somebody decide? It's not designed by committee. It's just make something.
No, but there's so many people now that are higher ups, that are execs, that like I'm pretty sure I can see like Craig Federighi in one camp and like Johnny Hive in another camp, and they fight, but they're at the same level. So like none of them can tell the other to shut up and just do it the way they want this to happen. Like, so it's a matter of discussion, and then I don't know, like compromise, yeah, and a bunch of keynote presentations and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that was a big problem, and I think that they did great with the iMac Pro. One of two things. Either this means that CC, we can do a great design and still have like thermal capacity in there, or versus another point of view, which would be, okay, you had so much constraint that we had to do this and this and this and that, and also like underclock the CPUs to be sure they don't overheat. So see what your nice design forces us to do. But for a Mac Pro with people changing components often, that doesn't work. We need a cheese grater. So like, it's an ongoing debate, I'm sure, at Apple, and hopefully by today it's been fixed and they understand what they have to do and they just try to do it. But I'm with you. I don't understand why this takes so much time, even if there's arguments. Arguments can take weeks or at least a month or two, but there's no need to take like a whole year or two to just argue. And I don't know, maybe they did like both and they said, let's come back in 6 months and show me what you got. And kind of like we did with the touchscreen iPhone and the click wheel iPhone at the earlier stage of the design of the project. I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, hopefully this year. I would hope for something in November at the latest, like early November. Hey, by the way, remember that Mac Pro we discussed? Boom, here it is.
Because when was this like Mac Roundtable thing? 2017, April?
Yeah, but that was mostly for the iMac Pro.
Right, but they were working on the Mac Pro at that time, so it's been like 2 years.
Yeah.
Or maybe a year. Whatever.
Didn't Apple said like not to wait because of fiscal reasons for this year? I remember news about this a couple months ago where Apple confirmed like not to wait. If you wanted to make a purchase this year, the iMac Pro was the one you should get. ... Like they kind of mean like don't expect a Mac Pro by the end of the year, because if you want to buy it on this fiscal year, it's not going to work. It's going to come up next fiscal year most probably. So you're going to use your tax credit or whatever this year. So yeah, it's hard to know. We really need a Mac Pro. We need something in this world that is extensible, super powerful, and can do anything, any type of work.
There's a last little rumor I just snuck into the show notes. Photoshop for iPad. I don't know if you heard about it.
Yeah. I read that yesterday. That's interesting. They're gonna redesign the old. Well, they say it's a new app that's gonna be platform agnostic. So I don't know how they're gonna build it, but the point of it is it should be able to run on desktop and on phones and on tablets and on everything. And no matter what the platform, each platform has their niceties. Like for example, on desktop you have mouse support. On tablets you have the Apple Pencil and the Surface Pen. And on the phone, well, you have your big hot dog fingers. So it's going to be handling everything properly. So I don't think it's going to be a replacement for Photoshop. It might as well be like a new Photoshop mobile or Photoshop tablet or whatever that's going to be designed and thought from the ground up to be Photoshop, but with the feeling of feeling right at home on every platform. So that's going to be very interesting to see, because that's one of the reasons that people are still buying Surfaces, is because that's the only way you can get Photoshop to run in the full like x86 type of scenario. Whereas on iPad, you only have like a downsized application with very minimal features. So yeah. All right. That's it for episode 96. You can find the show notes at RGBAfm/96 or in your current podcast player of choice. You can find us on Twitter at _RGBAfm. You can find us everywhere else on the web. I'm Vallier, VALLIERES.
I'm Tyler Menard, TYLERMENARD.
Have a nice week.
Have a nice week.